In February 1960, a ship tied up on the coast of Venezuela, and nobody would unload her. She had crossed from New Jersey with 176 steel boxes aboard. The boxes were full of powdered milk. She was the first American container ship to sail a foreign route. As the trade press recorded it, the men on the dock refused to work her. The standoff ran 18 days. It ended in a deal. The cargo came off, and the wine that owned her promised it would not put container ships into that trade again. Then she went home and sat. Nothing like her had ever tied up at La Guaira. It took those men no time at all to work out what she was for. Everybody else spent the next 2 decades arguing about these boxes, in committee rooms, by letter and by ballot. What came out of that is on every ship you have ever seen. She never went back to Venezuela. Grace lined laid her up for 2.5 years and then sold her to Sea-Land, who renamed her twice. In 1965, she became the Mayaguez. On the 12th of May, 1975, a Khmer Rouge patrol boat boarded her off Palau. The American operation to get her back is generally recorded as the last official battle of the Vietnam War. Her crew had already been released. The Marines going in did not know that. That is what became of the ship the dockers turned away. What became of her cargo is the reason you can buy something made on the other side of the world. A shipping container is a rectangle of corrugated steel with doors at one end. There is nothing clever in it. The clever part is that they are all the same. Every one of them is exactly 8 feet wide. The width does not vary with the length, and the steel corner fittings across each end sit the same distance apart on all of them. Any crane that lifts a box off a ship was built without knowing what is inside it, who packed it, or where it sailed from. The agreement is the product. The steel is packaging. A container is built to stay shut. Between the factory and the shop, nobody opens it, and the only account of what is inside is a piece of paper. On the 13th of February 1997, a rogue wave hit the container ship Tokio Express off Land's End. 62 containers went over the side. One of them was full of Lego. The pieces were mostly from Lego's ocean-themed sets, so the record of what went into the water reads like the inventory of a very small, very specific navy. 4,200 octopuses, divers' flippers in the hundreds of thousands, scuba tanks and cutlasses in the tens of thousands. They have been washing up on the beaches of Cornwall ever since, and people go and look for them. The one everybody wants is the octopus, because only 4,200 of them ever went into the sea. Somebody knew exactly what was in that box, down to the last cutlass. Nobody designed the box itself. In July 1958, the American Standards Association got the transport industry into a conference where everyone agreed that somebody had to fix the sizes. The man usually credited with all this is Malcolm McLean. Mark Levinson, who wrote the standard history of the container, says McLean took no part in those talks at all. He gets a kick, he says, out of reading that McLean was trying to change the world, when mostly he was trying to make a buck. The men who were there included an engineer from Matson called L.A. Harlander. He sat through the whole thing and wrote it all up long afterwards in a naval architecture journal. 6 links went in. A task force voted 4 of them out. His account of how the corner fittings were finally settled reads like this. After extensive oratory, volumes of correspondence, some development, and a lot of testing. About one thing, though, they were exact. A crane lowering a loaded box will sometimes put a fitting down where the hole is not. That failure has a name in the standard, and the name is misgather. In the spring of 1961, the standard was approved. By then, it had 4 links in it, 10 feet, 20, 30, and 40. 2 companies had a problem with that. Sea-Land and Matson owned most of the containers in America between them, and their boxes were links the task force had voted out. The risk was not embarrassment. An operator running non-standard boxes could be shut out of government cargo, out of shipbuilding subsidy, out of federal ship financing. So they fought it for years, and they won. Both their links were written into the standard, and 2 of the 4 the committee had originally blessed died in the market instead. It is still done this way. In 2005, a longer box was let in, by an amendment 1 page long. The back cover of that amendment reads, "Price based on 1 page." There was one more argument, and Harlander was one of the people making it. Containers get shunted. When a train stops hard, the cargo inside shoves at the wall at the end of the box. The standard sets how hard a shove that wall must take. He felt that number was set too high. In the late 60s, he and a few others campaigned to have it, and their case was that the stronger wall bought nothing. The rail carriers, calling it unsafe, were happily accepting the same cargo and highway trailers built exactly that way. He lost. In the paper, he sets the outcome of that fight down in 2 words, inside a bracket. We lost. The figure that beat him is 4/10 of gravity. His paper prints the table of design loads every container is built to, and under that figure sits an author's note. It reads, "The basis for 0.4 is not known." He was in the room, he was on the committee. Harlander's table has a line for the roof. It has to hold 440 pounds, which is roughly what 2 men weigh when they are up there working together. Then he adds one more thing, in passing. Since 1965, he notes, each of the 2 men has gained 20 pounds. Nobody changed the number. Somewhere inside the standard, 2 men from 1965 are still up on that roof, and they are still the wrong weight. The same paper has a line about how strong a container actually has to be. It is built to a safety factor of 1. Put the design load on it, and it must not permanently bend, and that is the whole requirement. Harlander lists the justifications for the thin margin. The first one reads, "The container is designed to transport cargo, not people." Nothing else about it was designed for people either. A sealed box that nobody opens is a box that nobody has to unload. Unloading was a job. Tens of thousands of men did it. A load that took a gang of men 18 to 20 man-hours to shift could be moved by crane in 2.5 minutes. The dockers at La Guaira had no study in front of them. They looked at 176 sealed boxes and feared for their jobs, and the fear was not superstition. It was arithmetic. The dockers in America could see it too, and their union did the cleverest thing anybody in this story did. It did not try to stop the box. It tried to own the work of packing it. The International Longshoremen's Association drew a circle. Any box packed or unpacked within 50 miles of a port had to be packed or unpacked by longshoremen on the pier. Any shipping line that let somebody else do it paid $1,000 for that container. After a strike in 1964, every man who qualified was guaranteed his hours for the year, whether or not there was any work to do. From 1964 to 1977, not one new longshoreman was hired on the East Coast. The truckers and packing firms whose work the circle had taken went to the labor board, which found the rules unlawful. It reached the Supreme Court twice. The first time the court sent it back, and the second time it held that the rules were lawful. The union won. In the same opinion, the court recorded what the rules it had just upheld were achieving. 80% of containers were passing over the piers untouched. They had won the right to a job that had already gone? That argument is not over. After a short strike in 2024, the union and the East and Gulf Coast employers agreed a new contract in January 2025. The terminals may now bring in semi-automated cranes, and for each machine the contract guarantees a number of new jobs. Their last contract had prohibited full automation outright. Once before, the union took hours guaranteed against work that was disappearing. This time, it is jobs guaranteed against machines that are already on the way. The whole proposition of the container was that a ship should touch land for as short a time as possible. It worked. In 2024, a maritime university surveyed the crews. A quarter of them had had no shore leave at all, over a contract averaging 6.5 months. Of the ones who did get ashore, nearly half had under 3 hours. Terminals are not in cities anymore, and turnarounds are too fast to walk anywhere, so the people who move everything you own see the gate and no further. The university's own conclusion was that shore leave is becoming rare, brief, and in danger of extinction. In February 1960, on a dock in Venezuela, men nobody had consulted looked at 176 steel boxes and refused to touch them. They lost, and they were right first. The boxes have not stopped arriving since. Consider liking and subscribing for more load-bearing history videos.